Hello everyone, I'm Zara Durrani and welcome to On Location, brought to you by TELUS STORYHIVE. I am so excited and honored to be back here as your host to bring inspiring locals who are making a positive impact in our society, whether through entertainment, fashion, humanitarian work. Our very first guest is someone who I have admired for a very long time. I've watched her career grow over the years. She has really inspired me in my own personal journey, and I've loved watching her on television, and now going from a broadcaster to an entrepreneur to her live selling school. I'm talking about Dawn Chubai, who is not only a media personality, an actress, a jazz vocalist, but also an entrepreneur and a media coach. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're so busy. I stay up to date with everything you're doing through social media. Even though I was away and I haven't seen you in person for so long, I feel very tapped into your life and into your work. Congratulations on launching Live Selling School.
You got all that. You ticked all the boxes. Well done. I mean, 23 years in television and now, yes, an entrepreneur. It has been a journey. And so you managed to capture pretty much every single step of the way. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. You know, something you were mentioning earlier, Dawn, is that your motto in life is saying yes. That's what happened. Like, I was in Paris and I said, wow, how amazing would it be to have Dawn on the show? Because I love the fact that you mix being an entrepreneur, a media personality, and marrying both of them. Mm-hmm. You know, and you're still working in media. You're doing your media coaching, you perform, you're doing all this work. But I think like someone like me can learn so much from you. So this is kind of selfish to have you here because I wanted to pick your brain and be like, how are you doing what you do?
Well, and I would say yes is the answer I tend to lead with before I say no. But I think the diversification of opportunities has been probably one of the keys to my success. And when I got into television, it really was kind of by accident. Well, I guess it wasn't by accident. I mean, ultimately I had to, get the gig and say yes to that too. But it was really just someone offering me an opportunity, and me, without really the skills, without really knowing would I be successful at it, I thought, why not? And so I've progressed my career even up into now on saying yes first, and then quite often figuring it out. Now with my live selling school, it really is the accumulation of absolutely everything that I've done, and very intentional with the live selling school. But to have more than one gig, to have more than one opportunity, I think it gives a sense of security as well, knowing that I'm not completely reliant on if that boss thinks I fit the bill, or if this person thinks I'm blonde enough, skinny enough, young enough, whatever. I think there is that, there's something about being able to sort of steer and carve out your own path. And obviously you have to have support from people to be able to do that. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, look at all the things I did. I mean, there are lots of people that have to do a lot of things to offer freedoms and independence and support from partners and family, of course. But to have that mindset that I'm not going to just be that person who only does that one thing.
And I wonder if you're like this, because I'm very much like this, and I've always tried to be like, could I just focus on one thing? I feel like I'm not satisfied by just acting, by just hosting or modeling or whatever, where I feel like I need to stretch, I need to grow and learn new things and be a beginner and be a student, because it activates that childlike sense of wonder inside of me. So we were talking earlier when my co-host Loki was here, and he's no longer here.
He's just gone to another room.
Yes, he's out having a fun walk. You mentioned how you got into broadcasting. Mm-hmm. You had no prior experience.
Zero.
And you just jumped in. Now that takes guts.
Well, it takes someone seeing potential, and then it takes the willingness to be vulnerable and to not be perfect. And I know what it's like to want to be, you're probably the same way, we're both Leos, days apart. a decade apart, but days apart, to want to be perfect, especially in media. There is that you want to be aspirational, you want to be perfect. You don't want anyone to see the things about you that maybe you don't feel as comfortable about. But to that point, I mean, it is a bit of that vulnerability. It's that willingness to do all of that. And I think the wonder and wanting to learn is also what makes it so exciting, to be willing to try different things. And so when I was, it was actually my music. So, I mean, it's so funny because it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It was my music that actually got me into television, but to get into music was me also saying yes without being officially ready for it. I was doing musical theater back in Edmonton. I had a wedding band, as one does when they can sing, and it's fun, right? But I was working for a nursing association in the public relations department, and one of my coworkers was opening up like a bar, like a lounge on White Avenue in Edmonton. And he had known I was a singer. And at this point, by the way, no one knows who I am. I mean, I'm just another girl in a band, right? And he said, well, I'm opening up this club, and I'm thinking about having jazz music every single Monday night. And he just said, well, you've got a jazz group, right? And of course, I mean, obviously I had my rock band and I did musical theater, but I did not have a jazz group. And I said, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not endorsing lying.
You're like close enough.
I was like, what is jazz, right? So I said, yeah, I do. And he goes, great. Well, why don't we book you gigs in 3 weeks? And so I had to hunker down and I had to get a band together. I had to get charts made because you can't just get recorded music. It's not like karaoke. And then it's like, what key are things going to be in? And just because you buy music books at the store doesn't mean that's the key that you're singing in, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm a professional. I'm like, I can't sing anything too high or else people are going to think I faked it, right? So anyway, 3 years, I had that gig for 3 years. And so in that meantime, I had also released my first CD and I would perform on the local television station. It would be like, the breakfast television in Edmonton. And I would perform there, promote my music, promote my gigs, my CD. And one day they asked me to audition to be the weather girl. And this is back in the day where you called it weather girl. Now it's, of course, weather presenter and all that kind of stuff. And I auditioned. I had just come back from Korea. I was performing for the International Travel Expo in Sokcho. And literally the next morning was an audition with the host of the show. And I was not very good at all. And that was fine. I mean, I didn't ask to be there.
You didn't go to school for
I
it.
didn't
You
go.
were just
I barely graduated.
I barely
graduated high school, Zara. I mean, let me tell you.
Welcome to the club.
Gosh, I mean, maybe it's the Leos and creatives. I don't know, but ain't nobody got time for that, right? So anyway, I auditioned and they came back at me and said, we're gonna go with someone with more experience. And I was like, that's fine. I mean, yes, it hurts when people don't want you for something, but also keep in mind, I never actually said I wanted that gig. It was just like someone said, hey, come audition. I was like, all right. And so about 3 weeks later, I received a call and they said, come back in, you're down to the final 3. And I was like, you basically told me I was terrible. I mean, they didn't. They weren't that rude. But I mean, come on. It was a no. It was a don't call us, we'll call you kind of thing. And even though I was still performing on the show and all of that is with my music, obviously they weren't rude, but so they said, no, you're the final 3. And I'm like, how's that possible? And they're like, well, we know you didn't go to NAIT, which would be like BCIT or Columbia here, a technical school. And they said, we're going to spend a little bit of time with you and let's see what we can teach you in a very short amount of time. So I got there a little early. I think we spent 10 minutes where they, here's where you look, when you're taking a throw from the news anchor or whatever, here's kind of a good way to segue in. So they gave me a little bit of training. Well, I guess they thought that it was a moderate enough improvement. I was still by no means very good at all. And in fact, you can find I put my audition on YouTube. If you look at Dawn Chubai, I think it says Dawn Chubai vintage video. So if you look at that, it's like
is there a playlist?
It's on there. Okay. I put it there because it's important for people to know that you don't always start at the finish line, right?
Dawn, I need to hear that so much.
You have to see it.
But when you were saying about perfectionist and this and that, even for example with social media posts or like anything out there, I had to do like a voice audition earlier, like just before you came. Normally I'm like, no, the tone and this and that. But it's like the clock is ticking, Zara. This is due at 10 a.m. Either you're going to make the deadline or you're not. But we need to hear, because I think the fear of not being good enough or the idea of perfection, and I think especially as women in our fields in terms of the looks or this and that, I woke up very early to get my hair done. You know, all those things, they've kept me, I feel, my own, you know, I feel like in certain areas, could I have gone a little bit further? Could I have knocked on that door? So I would love to hear your take on that. Like, how have you pushed past your own inner fears or insecurities?
Oh, well, at the end of the day, we've got one life to live. And, you know, I'm not saying I am the bravest person. I mean, my risk taking only goes so far as knowing that I've got a bit of a safety net. It usually is that way. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, you know, I don't just rappel off of a building like I did for Easter seals without knowing that the carabiner is holding me tight, you know, that kind of thing. That said, though, you know, as I've gotten older, I become a lot more understanding of how limited our time is. And also understanding that, you know, yes, it's a competitive world, and yes, don't we want to be perfect because the other person might be better than me. But to just go for it, because when you are passionate about something, in my experience, I can't say this for everybody, but there is sort of that, you bring something extra special. You've got a secret sauce that no one else has. And so you did your voiceover and you were racing and you're like, could I have done it better? Zara, I mean, I've known you for 10 years, not as personally as we are sitting on this couch right now. 13 years probably now, actually. I remember when you had short hair. But you were probably, even with your not sure if it's perfect voiceover, probably 20 times better than somebody else. And there will be someone else that's better than you.
Yeah.
And that's
okay. And
then
20 times better than the fact that if I didn't do it.
Well, what do they say? What is it? Wayne Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I'm probably messing up the entire quote, but I mean, there is a quote, something to that effect. Like, if you don't take that shot, you don't get any of it. And so, you know, me saying yes to that jazz gig catapulted me into, yes, I did actually get the job in television. That's 23 years ago. And then it was that experience, that cumulative experience, that brought me to TSC, which is Canada's only TV home shopping network. And then it was that opportunity that had me one day while I was commuting for the last year, having moved back to Vancouver, that had me realizing there was a void in the world of essentially influencer marketing and digital marketing and advertising, which has now started to encompass live stream shopping, which is seismic in China. It's big enough in North America, but nothing like China, but it's growing. And I thought, there's something here. And it tied into my media training. It tied into my media experience. It tied into my home shopping host experience, which I still continue on as a guest, as opposed to a multi-commodity and category host. And now this is the intention. So where I might have just started with saying yes to everything, this time I was the one that went, I'm going to take all of this, because here I am. I'm 51 now. Like,
and looking fabulous.
Well, thank you. It's all that good skincare that I sell. But to that point, it's like, okay, now I'm willing to go, yeah, no. I'm banking on me. Other people have always banked on me. And I said yes, which is good, because that's what you need. You need people that believe in you. Well, now I believe in myself enough to do this, and I believe in what I'm doing enough. So, yeah, I mean, there is an element of risk, but at some point too, you do have to sit there and go, where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And I think there's room for all of us. And so, you know, for you and I to be sitting on this couch, for us to have met, you know, several years ago when, you know, you had shorter hair and I was definitely thinner. But, you know, that's where we go.
You're literally the same. Someone, I think it was this morning or last night, posted a picture with you. It was Nergis Niramwala.
Oh, I love her.
And I was like, wow, how serendipitous, because I'm having you here today, and I wanted to bring her on as well, and just because I wanted to do coffee with you, and I was like, well, we could sit here, we can film, and then it'll be two birds, you know, killing with one stone, and have you right here, because I love how you've taken I think I call it being an artist, but at the same time, like, you're this media personality, you're singing, you're acting, you're doing your coaching, and then starting your live school. So it's like, I've done it little bit of like mixing the art with the business, because when I was in my 20s, I found it quite difficult to merge the two, because it was either I'm a performer and an artist, but when it came to the money part, when it came to banking on myself, it felt very uncomfortable. And I think it can be like that for a lot of artists, to be like, I'm going to start my own thing and tell the world this is my offering.
Doesn't it feel though, and I think when I hear you say that, Zara, I think there's this perception that if you are an artist, that means that you know, are meant to share it with the world. And 100% you are. 100%, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't also be considered a professional in your field.
Completely.
You can be an artist, but you still have something to offer that other people can benefit from. So if you are a painter, yeah, I mean, you're not teaching someone to paint necessarily, but they're enjoying your art. Well, what do you gain from that? What do people enjoy from that? There's something worth, and for you to be able to continue to do your art, I mean, mama's got to eat.
Yes,
you got to eat.
100%, and feed the little furry baby.
Right.
100%.
That's right.
You know, and that's been part of my own personal journey and growth that I've gone through over the last few decades, is like, no, these are the offerings. This is now me working with clients. And, you know, not only am I working as an actor and TV host, but also doing that influencer stuff, which I would love to dig into. Yeah. Because when I was reading about on LinkedIn, you posted about your live selling school, and I was like, oh, so you're not only working with brands and companies, but you're also working with personalities and influencers, which I find very fascinating, because you know, it's not just about looking a certain way or being of a certain age or certain body shape, but being an influencer. What you were mentioning earlier, it's being able to influence other people and sharing in an authentic, real manner your experience with a product. So I didn't realize that I was doing it over the years naturally.
100%.
But it was only a year ago that I really started tapping into it.
Make it a business.
Yeah.
Of course. And so it's funny. So lots to unpack there. I want to talk a little bit about the idea of aging even in media, because this was something that it was such a, and it still is a wonderful experience working at TSC. Even though I'm not officially an employee, I've been brought back as a jewelry guest, so I'm still very much ingrained, but you know, into it. But it's now as an entrepreneur as opposed to an employee. But what I realized working there was that I am relatable to somebody no matter what my size is, no matter what my age is, whether you let your hair grow gray in COVID or you chopped it all off. You choose not to wear makeup, you want to wear makeup. There are so many people that can relate to you. And so perhaps unlike, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe media's completely turned on its head and not cared about what women look like and all of that, but probably not. There's probably a little bit more lackadaisy attitude about it than there was maybe when people first started, certainly even when I started. But working in home shopping, you realize that the relatability, the authenticity was the most important thing. And then of course all the things that it takes to persuade and to essentially influence a shopper to purchase what you are selling, the research and all of that. So to tie it back now to what you do and what a lot of people probably do is they think, okay, I want to be an influencer. Well, first of all, go tell your parents that you're an influencer. And they don't get it. They don't get it. Because they think that what you do is you take selfies and you go, buy this coffee, or you should really try this whatever, or buy this top or whatever. And there is that. That's kind of where it started. And it was really more in the way of certainly celebrities, which ultimately product placement, all of that is influencing.
And brand recognition.
Of course. And so, and then, you know, there started to be this understanding of like, okay, well, if I want to be like Zara, if I want to be like Dawn, or if I want to be like any of you out there, I'm going to buy what they have. But the reality is likes and what we consider important with respect to engagement in social media is not the same as what's important to brands. Likes for reach and all that, maybe that matters because it gives exposure.
And it can also be purchased.
Well, and that's the whole other thing, right? So ultimately you could have 1 million followers, but if no one buys that thing, that top, but I've got 10 followers and everyone buys that top, what's the better investment for the brand?
Exactly.
And so that's where I started to see the potential. And clearly, you know, there are a lot of influencers out there. And so Zara, is so smart for you to have always been on the front end of understanding what value can I bring. So I doubt very much that, I'm not saying that you don't just post pictures, but I doubt very much that's the only way you influence. I have a feeling you probably go far deeper, which is at the core what live selling school is. It's using skills that have been mastered by home shopping hosts and networks. It's the strategy. My HSH method is the strategy that I've used to sell tens of millions of dollars in product. And to me, that's the next incarnation of influencing. And you're on the cusp of that already. And you have probably already been doing a lot of that because you've gone deeper. You create like a creator. You're not lazy. That's the word I want to use. You're not lazy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. Because there was a time that I didn't share about my age or my personal life so much because I was like, oh, this I want to keep separate. But I realized the more that I share of my own real life and my personality and what I do, the fact that I'm 41 and what am I doing for self-care, because people are sometimes shocked to find out my age. And then, so when I'm working with the brands, like I took a bunch of brands to Paris, I'm like, wow, this skincare is really good. So it motivates me to actually promote them more. Like, of course, I can charge, because I'm giving so much more. But
they're selling. So why wouldn't you make something? That's the goal here.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. No. So they're working with me, this brand, but it made me even more passionate to promote this product because I'm like, oh, this skincare is really good.
But to interrupt you, and sorry to do that, but I want to tap into something you said, because it's not just promoting the brand. Ultimately, if you really care about what you're doing as an influencer, which you do, and as a salesperson, and by the way, when we talk about, my live selling school, it's not just for people that might be recognizable. It could be the gal that works at the beauty counter at one of your favorite beauty store or department store or fashion store. It's anybody that can help someone make a wonderful decision for themselves. So when you talk about promote, yes, the brand goes great. Zara's promoting my brand. But I would ask that, and I think this probably happens to you naturally, but to really verbalize it, it's ultimately, what value can I provide to the people that have taken the time to follow my social media account? Well, I can let them in on the skincare that I'm using. Why? Well, because it's a great brand. Why? Because it works. How?
Yeah.
That's when you start to use those live selling skills. So a picture of you before you used great skincare to now. Or the fact that I could look at any one of your pictures and go, Zara, you haven't even aged. And then you to be able to use that as your social proof to go, well, it's because I use great skincare, and let me tell you about this great skincare. That's different than promoting.
That's taking it to the next.
Well, that's the value to the person.
It's like you're sharing a story.
That's the value to the person,
Yeah.
right? Because why would someone part with their money? I don't care if it's $1 or $100. Money is money. We work hard for our money. And so, yes, Zara shows me this skincare. That's not enough to make me want to buy it. Yeah, I might want to look like you. I might want to look young like you and all that other stuff, which might be an enticement initially. You still got to get them to spend that money.
So what I'm hearing is sharing that story. So that's what you're teaching people, how to really create your story.
Part of it.
So let's talk a bit more. For example, if I was to, because like I said, I brought you here for selfish reasons.
It's good for me. I'm comfortable.
Yeah,
it's nice.
No, this is great. And then I also want to dig into your career, but this is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the live selling school. So if I was to, or for example, someone watching at home right now that they're like, oh, maybe this is something I can do, that they're really good at nail art, or they get compliments on their hair because they use XYZ products, that, whether it's a stay-at-home mom or a student who's looking for something part-time, how can live selling school help us? And can you walk us through what exactly you're teaching us?
Sure. So when I started live selling school, again, understanding that I know what it takes to communicate and to persuade through a screen. So when you walk into a store, right, you have the ability to look in the eyes of a salesperson. You have an ability to touch this top and to realize what it feels like, or to feel how that slip on your skirt and how it's so lightweight and it's almost like liquid. The way you have a chance to do that for yourself. So what I do, and many home shopping hosts and networks have done for over 50 years, is to be able to translate what you can't touch, taste, or try on through the screen. One of the biggest outliers or barriers to people purchasing online, and I know a lot of us shop online now, but there are still many of us that only buy a few things, but they don't buy certain things because they don't really trust that they're going to get what they think they're going to get. And so this is where a live selling host, and there's a term that's being used in China called live selling talent. And so I'm encouraging anyone that has the skills, and trust me, it is skills. It is not, you're not an influencer and live selling talent. You're not a sales rep and a live selling talent. They can be part of it, but there is a strategy of having someone feel like they are actually tasting something, right? So it can't be just really good. You got to tell me.
Yeah,
and it can't be really, really good.
As soon as you said the skirt was like, look at it, I was like, oh wow, that's a great way of describing it.
And I mean, listen, that was not without practicing, but these are the skills. So with my live selling school, I'm teaching people to not only communicate but persuade through the camera. Now, yes, we're also learning how to amplify your authenticity. So that's one of my 6 modules that I have. Yes, we're going to talk about live selling language. How can we describe things in a way that is taps into those senses? How do we identify customer motivations which stem around needs and wants? How can we make a want kind of like a need, right? One of my pet peeves is when I see, and listen, I've got nothing against influencers. I mean, I've done my influencing too, but the idea of saying, you just need to have this skirt. No, actually, to be honest, I don't. I need shelter and I need food. So need it's a subjective thing, because you might think because you have something in the game that I need that skirt. No, I don't need that skirt. So what you need to do is explain to me why I might want this skirt, and present a scenario, or how many times I'm going to be wearing this over the course of 20 years. That skirt might be $500 right now, but over time, it will have long since paid for itself, long after the credit card bill has been paid. So I teach those skills. I also teach the idea of hosting like a live stream event, which may or may not use a live stream shopping platform, which I do get into detail. Hosts don't need to worry about that quite so much, but the brands that want to work with them might. But even being able to host a show on Instagram Live or Facebook Live or Amazon Live, which by the way doesn't cost you anything, and you can work those skills, learn how to flow your show. I'll show you, but and it's worth Googling, but it's also flowing your show. What's your run of show? You're a TV personality. You understand what that is, but for a lot of people, they think to themselves, how am I going to talk to myself for 40 minutes? I mean, I do reels, I do a quick little 40 minutes on your own. I used to talk for 1 hour sometimes all by myself to a camera, right? So I teach people how to do that run of shows so that they can properly execute a live stream shopping show. You can do it on your own, you can do it with another person, an expert, you can do it with your best friend, you could do it with the formulator of the skincare that you use, or the esthetician that's at the spa where the skincare is also sold. And to be able to, do that is such an empowering thing, to bring a skill beyond taking a selfie.
I'm just getting ideas with you even sharing this, because I'm thinking of like spas or medical clinics, or even like a hairstylist. For example, I have naturally curly hair.
What?
Yes.
So I see now I want to go, I'm going, what tool and what products did you use? And not that there's nothing beautiful about naturally curly hair, but I'm going, like, I got a little curling back here and I have a hard time getting that out. So now I'm like, I need to hear what Zara has to say. Right?
Yeah, so I'm getting ideas even with you just sharing your passion, but I'm also thinking 23 years of broadcasting experience, 40,000 plus hours.
Oh, yeah, it didn't just happen by accident.
So through your live selling school courses, we're getting all that juice squeezed into this concentrate of a course.
Oh my gosh, see, you would be, I know, I hear Jillian, like, he's nodding, because you have that in you, and I think everybody has that in them. Some need it developed more, just like when I started in TV. I wasn't very good on TV, but I developed to be more. And I believe that if you're passionate about something, if you are authentic, and all the things that I can't teach you how to be authentic, I can teach you how to tap into it, right? Everyone has an authenticity, but you have that special sauce. I can already tell that you do. And you thinking, and I encourage everyone to think like, there's something that I can offer to somebody. It can be knowledge. It could be a tip on how I make my hair straight when it's curly, or how I make my hair beautiful with its natural curls. How do we do that? Brands like Nordstrom, if you look at Nordstrom Live or Target Live, they have a whole scroll of shows that have everyone from celebrities to influencers that are showing probably the products that you have used or the hair tools that you've used. And so now how's this different than influencing? So you might take one of those hot tools, and there might be an influencer or a makeup line where they show you a tutorial. Okay, that's great, because that's news you can use. But now, how do we get them to get that product?
And
that.
I think as a consumer, it makes you so much more comfortable. So for example, during COVID, I wanted to learn how to French braid my hair. Like I didn't know how to do that. So I watched YouTube videos, and the ones I found most comfortable or I learned the most with were the longer ones, where the person is going step by step. You start the piece from here, instead of just like, okay, you do this and then 30 seconds later and then boom, it's done.
Right, where it was like a cut, jump cut and speed up and...
Completely,
right.
Versus I'm even thinking of, like, I didn't even know about this whole world, this realm of like shopping live.
$636 billion in China.
I would like to tap into some of that.
But
please.
even in North America, over 55 billion. To that point though, Zara, and that's the difference, right? There are content creators, and that will never, user-generated content, it's never going to change. Of course it's interesting, and if that person who's doing that cool reel or TikTok dance or whatever, if they're using that particular product, 100% that is of interest to people, and there is value to the brand. But what if that person could get an extra layer of their skills? Because let's face it, Zara, right now I look at the ocean view that you have here. That might have to be filled with influencers, because there are so many influencers. How do you stand out? Just like there's lots of hair tools, there's lots of hair products, there's lots of makeup out there. There are lots of clothing designers. How do you stand out? What is you, Zara? What is your point of difference? How are you different than me? You know, and obviously we are all different people, and many different brands would want to work with probably both of us. But why are they going to choose Zara over Dawn? Why are they going to choose Sally over Johnny? Why are they going to choose anything over anybody? And if you have all these influencers that they all know how to take selfies, they all got ring lights. Like, come on, we all know you need a ring light. And if you don't know, you need to be lit. There is a problem here. Or natural light, like we have in here. These are all the skills that I teach. But if you now add yourself another layer of what makes you a real influencer, because real influencers that matter to brands have a measurable impact. And by the way, they do care about your followers and reach, but they care about what's actually selling on the .com more. So if you can stand out, you've now got something that makes you more marketable, which means Zara is going to get more work than Dawn perhaps, or Sally's going to get more work than Johnny perhaps. And that doesn't mean there's not work for Sally and Johnny. You're not taking money out of anyone else's pockets. This is where I say there's room for everyone. If all you want to do is take pictures or do TikTok dances, that's great. If you're happy with that, perfect. You want to go next level? Get yourself some skills that matter to brands. And right now, we're starting to see the trends of it. I just saw one of the magazines, a Good Housekeeping magazine, they're just getting set to have their first live stream shopping show. And they've got Jada Pinkett Smith scheduled, Dolly Parton scheduled, Paris Hilton scheduled. Now, are these people going to talk by themselves? Probably not. They're probably going to need a live selling talent beside them. So someone like you, Zara, doing exactly what we're doing would be interviewing Dolly Parton, Paris Hilton, Jada Pinkett Smith. If you're listening, ladies,
available.
She's available. But now, not only do you know how to interview, but now you're going to be able to slide in a call to action, right? Because that's the next level. You still want the news you can use. It's got to be interesting, and value add for the person watching, even if they don't buy, because you still want to provide something good and entertainment. That's what it is. It's shopping and entertainment. But now you're going to know that it's not just the same as giving Dolly Parton's website. You're going to know that there's only 1,000 of this particular hair accessory, let's say. I don't know what she's selling, but let's pretend. You're going to realize that there are 5 different colors available, and you're going to know that the least amount is the black. Now, you're going to be able to seamlessly, without it being a hard sell, because people don't love to be sold to. Back in the day, it was, but wait, there's more. And that still works, but it doesn't work for everyone. And that's where I think the influencer marketing thing really came in, is because we wanted that organic feel. But a customer still needs to be instructed on what the next step is for them. If you want this, you're going to want to grab it now, because we have X amount left. Remember Dolly Parton. I mean, she, hire the hair closer, right?
And closer to heaven.
That's right. So, I mean, and so that would be for you as a live selling talent. And that's what I would want you to be called if you had those skills.
I'm sold on like,
well, then clearly I did my job well. But you know what I'm saying? Next level, set yourself apart. You got one life. And if you're loving this and you don't want to be embarrassed to tell your family that you're an influencer, and you shouldn't be, but let's face it, even my parents don't understand what I'm doing. They have no clue. They know what I do, but they don't get it. And if you're an influencer out there, I know that your parents have probably told you to get a real job. 100% they told you to get a real job. This is a real job. When you get the skills that bring you something that is measurable that brands will pay for, it is a career.
And for example, I'm also thinking of friends of mine who are quite successful and were in school to become surgeons, believe it or not. I know one because I went to World Influencers Congress in Uzbekistan. I was invited. They spent millions of dollars to invite 100 of us in 2019. And there was a lot of travel influencers, but now I'm thinking that how this can work with even resorts and places where you have packages or whatever that you can. I'm very excited to dig into this course of yours. And, it's truly amazing that how you're obviously doing all your work as a TV personality, media personality, but also doing this. And I want to I know for sure, my skill set to the next level because like you said, and especially being 41, I think of this often, it's yes, I'm relevant right now when it comes to Paris Fashion Week and all of that, but you're thinking, okay, does anyone want to see me at 60 parading down the streets of Paris? Maybe they do.
I would all day long, but I love the idea, and this happens, we talk about growth mindset and growth mentality. And I think when you are able to sort of take control of adding something to what you already do that doesn't make you as dependent, I have to make sure this makes sense. It doesn't make you as dependent on what other people feel your value is. Of course, and when we talk value, I mean, clearly, obviously there has to be value for a brand to work with you. But, in the past, in media, value would be, way in the past, it would have been a very thin white woman. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right? That would have been. And so, the world progresses. And young. And young. You're right. So, and again, I'm generalizing. I mean, obviously at one time I was a young white woman. So, and now I'm just a white woman that's not so young. But, obviously we've seen the world progress not nearly to the level it has needed to, which is why having, a show like what you're on right now is so incredibly important for representation. But even let's take, a lot of sort of the different elements out. Let's just say women and let's say youth, right? And by the way, live stream shoppers and selling talent can be anyone. I mean, I know a gal who has a friend who's a drag queen that is a live selling talent. It could be men, it could be moms, it could be the counter person working at wherever, it could be a famous person.
It could be me and my dog.
It could be, and let me just tell you, a pet store would be very smart to tap into you and as a live selling talent, 100%. But the idea that you now are creating your own value. And so, you're not going to be for everyone. I'm not for everybody, 100%. But the weight now doesn't matter. The gender doesn't really matter, or if gender fluid doesn't matter. Your culture doesn't matter. The color of your skin doesn't matter. You're relatable to somebody. You are appealing to a brand. And the talent now, because you are so talented at what you're doing, bringing something different to the table, you will beat out the people you never beat out before. And again, competition is good. Doesn't mean you got to push someone else down. But why wouldn't you want to be the best at what you can do? Why wouldn't you bring the most to the table? You're a driven person. Of course, you're not going to just rest on your laurels. And diversifying all of your skills and talent is so important.
And you want to keep on growing and being on the cutting edge. And instead of just for example, when I started doing the influencer type of content and got a manager, started working with me and helping it. And I was just relying on him to do the contracts. But for my trip to Paris, I was I need to get out of my comfort zone because he's only been able to get me one contract. My trip is coming. I want to make sure I'm making income on top of my flight and my expenses there. But it took me getting out of my comfort zone because I'd become a little bit comfortable with him doing all the paperwork. And because what happens when you put yourself out there, you also get rejected. So I was okay, Zara, you have this nice email.
Because you're protected when you have a manager. They don't tell you all the no's. They only tell you the yeses.
Exactly. Yes. So now I was putting myself out there. I'm worst case. Honestly, I had one no in terms of the people that I reached out to, and one person who was out of inventory, and their inventory was all in Paris, but they're like, we really want to work with you next time you go to Paris, and they have someone who worked with me before. But it took me getting out of my comfort zone. But now if I can do something like what you're suggesting.
But you can do fashion. So here's your free advice. So because, I mean, and this is, when I talk about live selling talent, I mean, if you have an expertise, your niche is already picked out, right? So if you're a personal stylist, fashion and accessories make sense for you. If you're a makeup artist, great. But if you're just somebody who loves fashion, you can still sell fashion. And so I look at you in your travels, for instance. So here's, if I was to consult with you, and I do personal consulting as well, but my course, which is available at livesellingschool.com, is available to absolutely anyone. And it's a video course with modules that works you through all, literally start to finish, of everything you need to know, everything you need to do with exercises, and to, at the end of it, get a certificate that qualifies you as live selling talent to market yourself.
Oh, so, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I want to give you some advice though, because, and you can take it or leave it, but because you're so well traveled and you're so stylish, and because you're probably a bit like me, where you could, when you do your research, be a bit of an expert on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Probably culinary, probably, gourmet food, certainly fashion. So let's just take those ones. Skincare, you could do beauty. You could do everything, literally everything. But you could do, using technology that doesn't really cost you anything, you could do, secure, and this is just off the cuff, you could secure a partnership with maybe a clothing store here, let's say. And it could even be, somewhere where they've got multiple brands, right? And you could take, fashion to Paris. You could take Canadian fashion to Paris, and you can look at what the trends are in Paris and find the more affordable, the real way versus the runway. And you could do a show from Paris, bringing those brands there. And that would be interesting for people to watch, even if they don't buy, because you can't always think everyone's going to buy. You have to put something out there that you're proud of and that's an entertaining experience, but also serves who follows you, right? You want to be authentic. You're in Paris and you love fashion, so what? And yes, you might have fashion that you buy in Paris, but you could bring a bit of Canadiana or whatever brands there, and that would be a great show for you.
That's okay. Without doing the show bit, that's exactly what I did, and I received such great feedback from even followers of mine who are in the US. They're like, Zara, good on you for bringing Canadian brands to Paris. And I was like, wow, I wasn't really thinking of that so much, but of course they were the locals, and I was like, I know the spots to film, I know the places to go, I already have Fashion Week invites, everyone photographs me, let me take this. But I think to turning it into, I love what you said about the real way versus runway.
Yeah, and you're not, let's be honest, you're not selling necessarily the Canadian fashion to people in Paris. The idea is to help people understand that Canadian fashion, so if you're a Canadian and you're traveling to Paris, like that's how I would position it, because you have to think of who's going to actually buy and who's going to actually watch. It's going to be people here in Vancouver, maybe Toronto, anywhere in Canada, and maybe in New York and all that. But who's going to actually buy? And so for me, the appeal is that a lot of times we think what we have is not good enough. Maybe even what we have in our closet or what we bought last week at the store we just shopped at. And now we're going to Paris and we think we got to go buy a new wardrobe. And maybe you do, because the brand, of course, would love for you to sell more, and that's fine. They might buy a few pieces, and that's awesome. But to show that what you have here is so relevant in Paris, and so to see you wearing Canadian fashion next to the Eiffel Tower or wherever, beautiful museums and all of that, that's the aspiration that is so possible, and that I could see driving people to whatever website of the brand that you're representing, seeing you walking, the Champs-Élysées, or, you got all the French in there. I don't have it, but, that's sort of the visualization. That's why we buy magazines, is to see. To
get inspired.
Yes.
When we see content, like to be honest, like I got this skirt at a brocante, which is called, like, it's like a flea market.
Yeah.
I'm super into vintage shopping. I'm all about the deal. I'm all about, like, I found like a 4,000 euro Chloe coat for like 30 euros.
Wow.
Like I'm that.
Oh, you're like, you can hunt.
Oh yes.
You got like, you can sniff it out.
Yeah. So when I saw you wearing your like this beautiful piano skirt, I was like, I gotta find mine, and I'll be like matching with you and wearing this. But I did exactly something like that, but I like the element of talking, because in my content I created reels and pictures, but mostly video. but it wasn't me talking.
Right.
But I like of what you're saying with the Canadian designers and showing this is how you would pair it, and or even
live.
Yes.
And you can do it live. You could do shoppable video. And again, I mean, when I say live stream shopping, listen, I'm talking about communicating features and benefits, key selling points and all of that through a camera, right? To be able to do all of that. And so, you know, yes, you could even go live. You could do an Instagram live, or you could do taped content and break it up. But the idea is going deeper. If, you know, listen, if a brand is paying you, right? You have no reason to, you know, give away all your sales skills for free. I mean, if someone else is going to make money, that doesn't mean you don't do reels and you don't do that content that you did. But, and if it is vintage stuff, it could be like, listen, I got this stuff where I got it, but I want to show you how you can get it home, or how to put it together. And there's a store right now that has a very similar skirt to this, for instance, right? Or we've seen sort of that nautical look in the tops, and notice the trends right now are all about the little bit of the sleeve detail, the puff sleeves, maybe the little buttons and all of that. And so then you partner with either a designer or a store that kind of offers a lot of the similar styles, and you become a wonderful representative for them. I mean, these are longer conversations. The idea of learning a skill, you know, you can never go wrong. Like, you know, you learned French however many years ago, and you use it
and my French
all
is
the time.
so little, like you won't believe.
Oh, you're impressive. I was hearing you talk to your dog and getting like, arrêtez.
I know, I can introduce myself and I can get by, and everyone thinks I'm French or Francophone, but I think I was in a past life, but I certainly align with their culture and their music and everything. Dawn, that's truly amazing. I love everything you're teaching, and you're bringing so much value, and I feel like I've also learned so much, but we have just a few more minutes before I let you go.
Already?
I'm Julian there off camera is looking at the time, but I want to talk a bit about your career, because you've had because we just dove right into, you know, what you recently launched, and I'm so excited for you, and you brought a lot of value to me today by sharing, and my wheels are certainly turning, because I'm thinking of how I can implement that, you know, in the last quarter of this year, and seeing how I can take more action and more part in my life as a creator myself, and taking not just those risks, but also taking a chance on myself, like you were saying, like banking on myself, and seeing I only started thinking of like this year. How can I push myself more? Where can I go? What am I afraid of? Am I afraid of that rejection? Because believe it or not, even though as an actor I do so many auditions, I think it's a human instinct to be like, oh, like,
did I do something wrong?
Yes. Or am I not good enough for this and that? But I'm like, no, Zara, just put so much energy out there. Like, one of those things are meant to stick. One of these people are going to say yes. And out of like the 7 I contacted, 5 were like, yes.
That's amazing.
That's
a great success rate.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, like next time we have to take it to the next level. So I got some of those ideas from you. But I want to talk a little bit about your career, this impressive, you know, spanning over several decades. What advice would you give, I would say, to someone new, but also to someone like me? What do you think were some of the defining moments in your career, and that you look back, you're like, had I not done that, had I not, gotten out of my comfort zone and made this decision, or whatever do you think those crossroads were that you can share with me and as well as our audience, whether it's an entrepreneur and an aspiring broadcaster or singer or actor, artist in general, because you have a very impressive career and, you know, you're still taking it to the next level. Yeah. So I feel we can learn a lot from you.
Well, be open, right? And listen, I mean, and this sounds like what everyone said, well, I didn't do it alone, but I didn't do it alone. I mean, I had to have people that said, you would be good at this, and I think you should try. And it's me saying yes, but then it's other people elevating and amplifying and offering those opportunities. But, you know, someone could sit there and open a door. You still have to walk through it. And so saying yes, 100%. Being okay with not being perfect. Knowing that you're not meant to be perfect right out of the gate. I mean, when we're born, we don't start, I mean, if any of you were born and literally walked out of the womb, you should be in some sort of, I don't know, statues made of you or something like that. We all had to learn something, and we had to have someone that was willing to teach us. So I've had great mentors, and I've also been a mentor, and it's important to give back. And I believe, karma isn't the bad things that happen to you because you did something, it's the good things. When we say karma is as we say, a lot of people use that almost like you're going to get yours, and it should really be you're going to get yours. Like that, it's a mind shift of karma is the good that you do, not, I don't believe it's the bad that you do, because I don't have time to talk to somebody that did the bad thing, right? And sometimes we have to go to jobs that we don't enjoy, but this is where you have to find your joy. This is where you have to go, what am I going to do so that I don't have to rely on whether that person likes me or not? And by the way, not everyone is meant to like you. I don't like it when people don't like me. I don't like stress. I don't like confrontation, but I'm not an idiot. I know that people aren't going to always like me, and you have to be okay with that. So when you talk about rejection, all that's meaning is now you've freed up more time for the thing that's supposed to be for you. And so to me, saying yes, being, open to opportunities, listening. I know I talk a lot, but I actually do listen a lot, and I absorb the talents of other people. So that I can, through osmosis, be better at, all the things I did. I mean, the course that I'm creating, and it's actually just on the cusp of actually being available and open. The registration's open, but I shot it myself. I edited it myself. I've done all of it, and I learned that because I worked with great camera operators at City TV, who, when I wanted to create content that would air on the station because they didn't have sort of the bandwidth, it was like a BT Pet of the Week, I shot and filmed it and edited it myself. And through that, can you imagine if I'd never had that opportunity? And by the way, it's not like I got paid extra, so I had to be willing to do it because I wanted to do it. And that's the thing too, you don't always get paid right away. You will eventually, trust me. But I was willing to do that. Now here I am doing something where I'm teaching people to do the very things that other people at one point taught me how to do. So I would say, as you progress forward, if you're new, be open. Don't be afraid to work hard. You're not entitled to anything, with all due respect. You're not entitled to anything. You have to work for it, and you got to be willing to continue to work for it. And so for the established broadcaster, or someone who's looking to maybe try something new, or the person who's just saying, no, I've earned this spot here, always be willing to improve. I mean, I don't remember where I read this, and I can't say she still for sure still is, but I mean, Barbara Streisand, for a long time still took singing lessons. It's Barbara Streisand. Does she really need to take singing lessons? But I can see that because I still watch playback of every single show that I do. Not the whole thing, but I'll often watch the opener. Did I hit my hook right? Did I take the care enough to do my hair the way it needed to be so that I translate well on camera? Maybe I didn't need to worry about it as much. Maybe a ponytail would have been good. Be constantly self-critiquing and improving. And that would be be open and be willing to continue to improve. Look at yourself often.
Yeah, I love that. Other than the fact that, going and doing that Weather Girl audition, the weather presenter audition, that was...
That's okay, it was Weather Girl back then, you can say that.
I would say that was certainly like a crossroads. Like, you could have been like, no, I'm a singer, I don't do this, I don't know, I'm not comfortable. You could have let the voice of fear deter you. But that, I think, was a big crossroads. Huge. Of you being like, okay, let's go. This opportunity presented itself, I will say yes and jump right in. I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I'm feeling very
inspired.
Yeah, very inspired. But also it feels very girls sitting on the couch, having coffee, water, and just really digging in because it's feeding my soul, because I feel like I'm a bit like that. I was asked to write a book. I've never written a book in my life. I barely graduated high school as well, which I normally don't talk about on camera, but there you go.
But see, that's the vulnerabilities are, and sorry to interrupt you, but that's the vulnerability that shows people out there, because I think there's this perspective where I remember people will, even now on resumes, where'd you graduate? And it's I didn't, but that doesn't mean I'm not good at what I do, and I still can probably do what I do better than the person who's asking me if I graduate.
Yeah, and you're killing it. You're killing it.
That's my point.
No, with you sharing that, I was it's almost like it made me exhale a bit, and which is part of the vulnerability. And I think part of the skill set that you're teaching others is you're helping see the gold that is in there and dig it out.
Everybody's got it.
Yeah, and helping dig that out. So I feel like you auditioning for that role, the Weather Girl role, that was a crossroads. What else would you say have been some defining moments in your career over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think pushing the boundaries a bit. I remember, I mean, I'll show my age here, but there was a time when television stations didn't want you to do social media and show the behind the scenes. If you can imagine that. I mean, that's the most important thing and the most interesting thing when you have somebody who's spending their morning with you, having their coffee while you're telling them the news of the day and the weather and the traffic, and they invite you into their home and you're not willing to show them that there's wires on the ground or that, you know, whatever. I mean, so there was a time where I got my hand slapped, and this was, some of you would not remember this, but there was a thing called Periscope, and it was sort of tied to Twitter, and it was kind of the original Instagram lives, but it was a live broadcast, which was so cutting edge. And now you've got it everywhere. But you know, they were like, no, you're showing that there's a messy corner there with cables, like wires from the cameras. And I was like, and people love it because they only see the perfect. Or that, you know, someone goes, well, oh, don't bring them into the makeup room. They're going to see you without makeup. And obviously I would never post someone else who's not comfortable, but I started to show myself without makeup. And not that I got in trouble for that, but these are the things that people loved. And so I would push the boundary, and now it's practically part of someone's job.
Like Pamela Anderson was just at Paris Fashion Week wearing no makeup. I was like, girl.
But now it's part of our jobs, right? And as media, and maybe some of the people watching have as part of their jobs, oh, we want you to do behind the scenes. And can you imagine there was a time where I got told, no, right? So I pushed the boundaries. And I think to push the boundaries, you can, you know, without doing anything that's hurtful to other people, obviously, like let's take that out of the way. But I kind of was always the one that was okay to ask for the forgiveness rather than the permission, within reason, within reason. You know, I'm not telling you to do something illegal. It sounds like you were already
at the cutting edge, like really wanting to show the human part of like, okay, you're going to find this hilarious. So normally my home, because I'm auditioning, I'm running to meetings and this and that and so the last show that I was doing, we were filming here as well, and my camera operator was like, well, let's just see the reality of what's here. I was like, she even made an Instagram story. I was like, no. But I'm enjoying hearing this because I think I fall into the perfection. Like I want to show, you know, like I will show my bare face. Like I have no problem. We've done like a whole segment of like, okay, like, you know, day to night makeup or makeup for South Asian skin. And this is how you bring out these features. I'm okay with the bare face, but when it came to like my little home, my closet mountain of clothes.
Right, because you're worried about judgment.
Yes.
Is someone going to think and I'm not saying you are, but is someone going to think I'm a hoarder? Is someone going to think I'm a slob? Is someone going to think, is someone going to think? And I am not saying that I don't care what people think. And I know that we all care. Of course we care. We should care. We should have pride in ourselves. But, you know, it's that mindset of one person's junk is another person's treasure. You know, you might think your room is messy, and I guarantee you, if I walked in there, let's bring the camera. But if I did, I can almost guarantee that it's probably, I would consider it, wow, this is like pretty spotless compared to my room.
Right? I think there's an authenticity to that. And like, I'm getting a lot of ideas, like talking to you and hearing your story of like, because now it's like the behind the scenes, like this is me before and this is me after her in makeup.
You're a real person. Oh my gosh, a real person.
Yes, you have blemishes, you have freckles, there's wrinkles. You know, this is the whole 9 yards.
Sure.
That's amazing. Has there been anyone or a few people that you've interviewed or done segments on that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here and I'm next to this person and I get to put the mic in front of their face and ask them questions? Is this my life? Is this a dream?
Well, and I think this probably wouldn't be the first time maybe you heard this perspective, but sometimes I'm not saying this is always the case, but sometimes the people that you consider your heroes or that you would think would be the most dynamic sometimes are not. So I'm actually not going to focus on who would be maybe impressive to other people. I would say that one of the privileges, and I was actually asked this not that long ago for a podcast, and for me, you know, certainly with my time on breakfast television and though at the shopping channel TSC, it really is the real people, the real stories. You know, and I don't like saying this, but you know, maybe someone recognizes you or recognizes me, and so in their world, they think we're whatever level of fame or celebrity. And I don't think of myself that way, but I just say it from the perspective of the people that you might have on this couch, have more recognizability, but it doesn't mean that they're a better or more interesting person. It just means more people are curious because they have exposure to them through media or a magazine or a podcast or a social media account, whatever. Some of the most interesting people that I've met are people that are out in the world, people that are doing good things. And I know that might sound kind of like fluffy or like, of course, the people that are doing great charity work, like, yes, that's important, but that sounds like I know maybe a canned answer, like I should say that. But it's honestly the people, like the artists that I've met, the instructors, the people that are, training to do something that I could never in a million years imagine doing. And I mean, that's just a very light overview, but I mean, think of the people in your life that you care about and that you admire, and think about what those things are. Those are exactly the same qualities that me as an interviewer or presenter appreciate about the people that I've talked to. And can it be about somebody famous or recognizable? For sure, 100%, but it's often the story that I was able to get out of them, perhaps, that was more interesting than everything we saw on the magazine cover.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, based on what you've shared, I'm sure there have been so many moments, but I feel like whether it's like a mom or like, a dog owner or a small business owner, instead of like some rock star celebrity where, they're used to the limelight, they're used to the interviews, and yeah, I'm sure.
Go talk to their spouse. To me,
yeah,
it would be interesting. Like when you think, well, no, I'm just saying because, and not saying that they will dispel the myth about who that person is. What I'm saying is the spouse of that person, think about the qualities they have to have. Think about the qualities they have to step back. Think about the qualities they have to manage that person as a larger than life. I think of somebody like, I think John Bon Jovi, who like married his high school sweetheart, and you would probably not even know her name. I wouldn't recognize her. I'd recognize John Bon Jovi walking down the street. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Still looks good in leather pants.
Yeah.
By the way, my husband says only people in the world that should wear leather pants. He says John Bon Jovi and Sheryl Crow. He says everybody else should ditch the leather. I mean, whatever. He's judging. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it would be interesting for somebody to do a show of the spouses of the famous people or the partners of the famous people, because imagine the kind of person you have to be to not only have attracted somebody that is larger than life to the rest of us, but who, by the way, still go to the bathroom and still put on their pants one leg at a time. They're still real people. We forget that, right? Even a moderate celebrity or somebody who we see on the local news, we forget that they're real people and have real emotions because we often see them so stoic. But yeah, I think you could do something with who's the spouse of this person that we all know, and I'd like to get to know them.
Yeah, and the humility and like the centered and groundedness,
Yes.
like that you would have to have, especially if Matt Damon, he married a bartender or a waitress, and I think he loved the fact that she just treated him just like a regular person. Right. Yeah, I think that's a great segment. I guess that's why they do those housewives of like athletes,
sure.
But they're definitely
they still themselves have their own entourage.
Completely.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, it's a fascinating life that I've had a privilege to be a part of. By absolutely every chance I had, which did, it started probably before that opportunity to audition as a weather person or a weather girl. But, that was definitely the catalyst to who I am today. And to build on that, I didn't do that well in school, which obviously is the building blocks I didn't catch. I caught the building blocks of life, and I continue to grow and I continue to learn. And
you're curious. What would you say is the skill set, other than the schooling part, required to make it as a broadcaster, to be in television, a TV host, a storyteller?
Sure. I mean, and listen, I literally stumbled my way through broadcasting. So I'll use any kind of what we call talent, and I actually don't really love that word, only because I believe everyone brings talent. But in the world of television, in the world of, broadcasting, people that are on camera, they call them talent. So I'll use that term just for now. You do have to have an authentic connection. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be camera confident, or be able to become it, because I definitely wasn't when I started. And those are skills that you can learn, and they are skills that you can practice. But as part of your being, because let's assume that, as my boss told me 23 years ago, everything is trainable except for personality. You've got to be willing to showcase who you are. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to not feel entitled that just because you're in front of the camera or aspiring to be a broadcaster or a live selling talent or, anyone on TV or in the movies, or that you're not entitled to anything. You have to work for it. And just because Zara has had all these opportunities doesn't mean that Dawn is going to have all these opportunities, because Zara is willing to do a lot of things that I'm not willing to do, and I'm willing to do a lot of things that Zara is not willing to do.
And I think what's also really attractive about, I'll speak of you as well as other people that I've interviewed, because I haven't interviewed like 40,000 people, but over the years I've interviewed a few. I find what really stands out for me is humility. Especially when someone like you or Fiona or other actors or athletes who've gone on to the World Cup and done this and done that, and then they come here and the humility is so attractive, and like opening up and sharing your journey and wanting to, quote unquote, like pass the baton and sharing your wisdom, because when you're in an industry for a few decades, there's a thing or two that you've learned.
Oh, without question.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that I bring skills that now come very naturally to me and puts me ahead of a lot of people, 100%. But I encourage you to watch my audition tape. I started somewhere. Make no mistake, I started somewhere. And the humility comes from the fact that I do recognize that I was born this way. We're all born this way. But it had to be drawn out of me. And there were people that had to support that journey. I mean...
But you also did the work.
100%. But I think and in that authenticity and vulnerability, and certainly what my success has always been acknowledging. The person that gave me my start in television 23 years ago, every time that I would renegotiate or re-sign my contract in television at whatever station, including when I got to TSC and including when I, would get a really great opportunity that all stemmed from that first opportunity, I would send him a note saying, hey, this really exciting thing happened. Thank you so much for 23 years ago, or thank you so much for 15 years ago. Thank you so much for giving me that opportunity.
And I'm sure that meant so much to him.
Well, he probably thinks I'm weird. I mean, they probably think, why is she still emailing us for that,
That would warm my heart.
Well, but and it's not unlike, it's giving credit where credit is due. So we talked earlier again, now because there are so many influencer agencies, and 100%, even with my acting, if someone gets me a job, they should get a cut. And if I get a job as a direct result of that other one, like an introduction, 100%, there should be an acknowledgement of that. And so it's same but different, but it's also acknowledging that you didn't just do it on your own.
Completely.
And to pass on your wisdom, like we're doing today, and as you've sort of made a priority on your show, is to let people get to know the path to, I'm going to say, perceived success, because I think I'm successful, but there's lots of things that you don't know about me where I feel like a failure. And, that would be another 4-hour show. But success is a perception. I mean, overall, do I think I'm successful? Yes. When you watch, you might think, gosh, she's got it all going on, but it's not all that. And so that's when you take the makeup off and you show people I've got the blemish or the dark circles, or, I've got the stretch marks on my leg, or I've got cellulite, or whatever that is.
That's why we love you.
That's
why I love you, that you're willing to go there. We have to wrap up here, but before we do, I love asking everyone, and we did this on my last show as well, what inspires you in life?
Why do you wait till last one? That's like a 20-minute pause on that. Seeing joy. It's like, if I see happiness, it's like, I want a piece of that. And I want to do what it takes to get that. And I think, so the more I see people with joy and just free expression of the joy, that's inspiring to me. Because can I say that a person does? Well, yeah, but that changes, right? Like, we're on a journey in life. And so a person that inspires me today might not be the same person that inspires me tomorrow. Doesn't mean I stop being inspiring. But yeah, I think ultimately, what is our goal in life? We, obviously we want success, we want money, we want whatever it is. But what is all of that eventually meant to give us? joy. So if I see people that are joyful, that's inspiring.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you, Zara.
We could have had this for another few hours for sure, and
should.
like really dug deep, sat there, gone through
I
the
think you
YouTube
dug
videos.
I think you dug pretty deep, Zara.
And you know, to find out you're a fellow Leo as well, it's like, yeah.
Days apart.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate you taking the time to come here. And if you felt inspired, make sure to get in touch. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Dawn Chubai right here. Make sure to check out her live selling school. I know I'm very excited about what's happening. And tune in next time. Thank you.